The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast with me, Sam Harris, your host. I invite fascinating humans from all walks of life to share their wisdom and unpack their mindsets and formulas for growth. Hello. I am currently out off on my own adventures on an expedition across the Arctic. That's right, the Arctic. So hopefully I won't be being eaten by a polar bear or falling any crevasses, but I am unavailable for doing interviews. Thus, we are making the most of this opportunity to look back at a really epic piece of the archives. Today we're going back to my conversation with the absolute legend, Oren Klaff. Oren is a complete baller who totally walks the walk as well as talks the talk. He is genuinely one of the most sought after salesmen on the planet and spends his days leading deals of astronomical values. He is an expert at commanding a room, sales and negotiation, and just sorting your shit out and developing a growth mindset. He was the New York Times best-selling author of Pitch Anything and Flip the Script. And if you're starting a business or if you're in sales, you basically can't go anywhere without being recommended his books. They are the books to read on sales. And I love the whole conversation with Oren. And one of his tips that I still always remember is that whenever you read or hear a great book or a lesson, the number one way to learn from it is by doing it. This is an exciting episode as we can learn how to close deals, and you're only going to learn by doing it. So frickin' get on the phone, go shoot some emails out and close some deals. Nice one. Anyway, enjoy the episode and I'll try and stay safe. I hope you do too. And welcome to Oren Klaff on the mic. Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. Today we have Oren Klaff on the podcast, who has written a brilliant book called Pitch Anything about just how to really up your sales game and make your business a much more easier thing to run and really drive your business in the direction you want to be doing it. And he's now had a new book called Flip the Script, which I'm super excited to dive into and generally just unpack a bit more about Oren himself because you sound like a pretty interesting guy. So it's my pleasure to have you on the podcast here today. So if there's anything you want to add to that, you're welcome. Otherwise, I quite like to ask my guests their life story in like 3 to 4 minutes, just to sort of get a bit of a picture of like who you are, where you've come from and where you're going.
Yeah, I think that's good. My background was pretty technical. I was in mechanical engineering. I loved cars and motorcycles and worked on that stuff. And I thought I was destined for a life of technology. I started a software company many years ago before the internet, and it grew actually quite large. We ended up having 70, 80 people, cresting through $8.5–9 million of revenue, tens of thousands of customers. And like many fast growth tech companies, we started running short on capital because of the growth pace. So there wasn't really venture capital in those days. There was a little bit, but it was mainly for hardware, not software. Software was mainly homegrown. And we were in Southern California, not Northern California, Palo Alto, where there's a little bit of money that did exist. And so we started running short on money. I started looking around for money, and I met all kinds of people, bankers, and go public and raise money. And they said, you need a marketing plan, you need a financial plan, you need a presentation, you need a pitch deck, you need a growth plan, you need KPIs. And we were just running a software company. I didn't know the language of finance. And so unfortunately for that company, we couldn't raise money fast enough to really turn it into something huge. We did end up selling it, but that created a wound in terms of understanding how to go get money and resources for things you did. And I think I've been trying to heal that wound for the last 20 years. And so that's why I've become an expert at what does it take to walk into a room, get on a phone, get on a Skype call, whatever the case is, make in these high stakes scenarios where you have one bite at the apple. When you go to Bank of America to ask for $100 million construction loan, right? You go make the presentation, they ask you some questions, they go to committee, and they come out with yes or no. The no is a no. They're not like, hey, it sounded good, come back in 2 weeks. improve these things. Let's take another look at it. It's these high stakes meetings, and everybody has them in their life, whether it's a marriage proposal, whatever the case is, high stakes meetings, one bite at the apple, do or die. So that's what I became an expert in, because that's where I died. And I've been, what was that movie with Tom Cruise where he goes into the exact same situation over and over again, and he dies every single time, and then he's reconstructed to do it again?
Yeah.
So he solves it.
I
Remember what that was
Groundhog
called?
Day, but it's the other one. Yeah, it's good.
It's like Groundhog Day for war. Right?
Yeah, in the future.
Yeah. And so I lived, Groundhog Day for finance, high stakes. And I was willing to go to the front, die, go to the front again, die, until eventually, bit by bit, I started to understand what works and what doesn't. And then eventually I got in with a guy who was just a natural at this. And he changed my worldview on what was possible. And I'll tell you sort of the changing moment for me, which led to Pitch Anything, which led to Flip the Script, which led to, whatever. I was telling, we have a new CEO here. I was telling him yesterday, we were on vacation in Hawaii and Maui, and I woke up at 6 a.m. to go get a coffee with my little boy. And we walked into a scooter shop that wasn't open yet, but the scooter shop owner was just sort of sweeping up, and he turns around and he goes, "What? Oren Klaff? So is here in my scooter shop in the far edge of North Shore, Maui?" So the things that have given rise to that life, started, and at one vivid moment, we were working on a big deal. I had a partner, just call him Jonathan. It's not his name, but he doesn't like his name being used. Really high net worth guy. And we were raising $1 million for a deal. And this was the last $1 million we needed. And the investor was being difficult. They just didn't want to sign some documents. There was a lot of back and forth. And finally, Jonathan just sent an email, all caps, 3 words: lose my number. Lose my number. And I'm, oh my God, the deal's dead. I've never seen anything like that in business. I mean, it's like the rudest, most over the top, all caps. I'm just used to professional. I'm not sure that works for us. We're thinking in a different perspective. Lose my number. I go, the deal's dead. I needed the commission from it. I had worked on it for weeks. I'm like, how did we just kill? And as I'm thinking and being depressed, and it's an impossible situation to get out of, another email comes in, and they reply, "We're so sorry. Didn't mean to, stretch the legal document. You're absolutely right. This is a non-issue. We'll have signed documents over to you and wire by the end of the week." And so I was like, how did lose my number turn into closed deal? And it opened a new universe to me of things that are happening below the surface in transactions that are identifiable, that are palatable, that are usable, that really exist, and that can make the difference in high stakes situations when you have to get something done, because it can change your career, your life, the trajectory of where you're going to end up as a person. So that was a moment when I realized there's a lot more going on in social situations in business than meets the eye.
That's interesting. So there's so many things that go into any decision that you kind of think are like simple or rely on just something to do with you, and so much other stuff. But it kind of makes me a bit confused as to what were the other things going on in this scenario, because you told quite a good story and painted a nice picture. It'd be nice to complete what was actually happening. Like, what were the things that you realized about that was going on?
Yeah.
I'm in a bit of a mystery here.
Neediness kills deals, and so allowing people to control you when you have the project, you have the idea, you have the company, you have the asset, you have the resource, and all they have is money. See, when you are supplicating to money, money's a commodity. What you have is, in many cases, yourself. If you're a CEO or an entrepreneur or a sales guy or an executive or an admin, you have yourself. And all they have is money. Money's a commodity. You can get it anywhere. Your integrity, your values, your know-how, your capability, your strengths, your connections, your commitment, your appreciation for problems, your experience having solved the problems before, not the least with your product or your service. That is all an incredible value, especially when it can solve the buyers or the customers or the investors' problem. So all they have is a commodity, and you have something amazing. So you who have the real power, the real strength, the real foothold in the transaction shouldn't supplicate with neediness to what is ultimately just a commodity. Now, there's a fine line, because you want the money, you want the contract, you want the agreement. But when you stop supplicating or acting needy, then there's a real alignment in power. I mean, you open Pandora's box with your question. what ultimately is happening is when somebody feels powerful or high status over you, there's some real physical things going on, right? Their vision narrows, they see you at a surface level, and they take high risk behaviors, things they wouldn't do if the stakes were higher for them. They might text, they might take an email, they might send you a negotiation tactic that is overreaching, like in this case, the example I gave. So they see you at a surface level, they don't listen very well, their focus narrows, they pay attention to other things, and they engage in high risk behaviors. That's what happens when somebody feels powerful. So if you make them feel powerful by the things you're doing, you're sort of complicit in your own demise.
That's really interesting.
And you can trace neediness, and I've tried to do it, and I've talked to cognitive psychologists and regular psychologists and not psychologists and amateur psychologists and business people. But I think one way to look at neediness is to go back all the way through, subhuman time, even 70, 80, 90,000 years ago, when there was no surplus of anything. All you had was a woman, a dog, some fire, and food, to get through the next 24 hours, and potentially a cave. Like those are the things you had. Or you didn't have an Xbox and a bicycle and 2 computers, and you didn't have anything to trade. When somebody came to you and they were needy, that was dangerous. Meant that they were willing to do things and behaviors that were dangerous and risky. You didn't want to be around people that were needy because it would lead to conflict. So neediness creates fear in people. You want to get away from people that are needy. It puts you in the low status position. It elevates other people to power. And this is not a situation where you can close a deal from in modern day commerce.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. I definitely highlighted the first thing you said of neediness kills deals, because it's so true. And any kind of relationship besides business, it's just like a huge red flag for anyone. And it either means that you're going to have like a shit deal for yourself, or it's just not going to happen at all.
So the thing is, the ability to see where to draw the line and how to draw the line professionally. And then, this is really what Pitch Anything was about, is how to draw the line in your neediness in a professional way that will be accepted and put the buyers or the partners or whatever in alignment with getting a deal done, right? And that then ties into moral authority. So if you've built up, I think this is, maybe a topic you guys are interested in, but if you built that your values, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and those values are in the middle of the fairway for culture, for society, for human beings in general, and they're actually your values, not bullshit. We do things right by the customer. I mean, that's not bullshit. A company should do things, but like... Yeah,
there's a lot of values people have that are just complete bollocks. And you're like, well, you've just written down like a values mission statement and you have no idea what it means.
For sure. So listen, a lot of people I talk to, I say, hey, what are your values? Right? And they say fairness. I'm like, okay, for me, I don't give a fuck. Everybody fucks me over no matter what, right? Because I don't care that much. Most of the deals I end up doing aren't fair to me. I do the best I can, right? But fairness is not really a value to me, right? I try and get a deal done, move forward, do the best deal possible, have a good relationship with everyone. And I don't really view the world in like a win-win relationship, right? Mainly I'm willing to lose and a bit. I don't try to over-maximize. So fairness, I like fairness. Fairness is important. It's probably in our mission statement, but that doesn't make me mad, right? If it's unfair. So, there are these universal values that companies adopt. I've spoken to a company the other day, large company, and they had, trust and loyalty and fairness and sort of the thesaurus on, if you look up goodwill, what are the other words associated with it? Trust, loyalty, fairness, appreciation. We treat people like we want ourselves to be treated. I mean, it's sort of concepts from the Bible, but that's not really your values. When you communicate your values that you're absolutely dedicated to, and you stick to your guns, and that's in Flip the Script, the chapter in Flip the Script is how to stick to your guns. That is what communicates lack of neediness, right? And most business people communicate neediness by reacting to the buyer or, whatever deal they're in, where they're trying to, hire somebody or recruit somebody or get a loan or whatever it is, whatever emotional state or whatever the emotional needs the buyer are, the seller tries to appease those emotional needs. That's how you communicate neediness, right? So if you think about it, that's why, and Tony Robbins and I argue about this, till we die, rapport, right? Yeah. He believes in rapport and I don't believe in rapport, right? Matter of fact, if you come work here and I hear you going, hey, how's the weather over there? Did you see the game? How about that storm? Yeah, oh, Dallas this time of year. How about those Cowboys? Oh, you were fly fishing? I love fly fishing. Oh, you were snowboarding? Yeah, I want to start snowboarding. Rapport, right? Making people like you, to me, is the first step in demonstrating supplication and neediness. Why are their sports, the things they care about, the weather, A, more important than the deal you've come to talk about, and B, more important than the things that you care about? And most of the time, it's a mess up anyway, right? Because like if you come here, and by the way, you're welcome, but at the back of our corporate offices, we've got a warehouse, right? And I've collected over many years some of the iconic motorcycles of all time, right? Magazine cover motorcycles. And so, someone will come in and they will go, oh, motorcycles, this is amazing. And, they'll see the motorcycles and they'll go, when I was in college, I delivered pizza I love motorcycles, on a CB 360T, right? And, motorcycle, this motorcycle. I'm like, yeah, in college, you rode the world's shittiest motorcycle that was ever made in the history of two-wheeled things with an engine in it, right? And these are icons from the history of motorcycle racing. Like, it's not really, not that his subject is better than mine, but it's not really correlation on the same subject. Motorcycles is a huge thing. And so most of the time when we do try and correlate and find rapport, it's a miss anyway. Somebody went to Alabama and played on the Alabama football team, and you love watching Florida State college football. Doesn't mean anything. It's barely correlated.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
Yeah, I just quite agree on like building rapport over meaningless stuff is quite useless. I do think it's really nice to like, if you can ask like intimate questions and actually talk about something super interesting that's kind of quite deep, it's actually really nice. You can help build like trust and actually at least gives you sort of 10 minutes of something really interesting to talk about. And maybe you get something from it as well, which I do kind of like doing. But if I'm there to like talk about something specific and going on like a half-hour debate of like, do I have like narcissistic ego issues because I go to the gym too much rather than just trying to be healthy or something with someone? It's like, it's an intimate conversation to have, which is quite nice. But do I need to have this right now with someone I've just met? It depends on what it is. It can be fun to unpack. Yeah.
I mean, I think in my world, and, I've got our new CEO sitting here and, we're sort of veterans of multi-million or $100 million deals. Nobody goes, you know what? I don't really like the deal. The terms aren't fair. The technology seems a little bit behind, but there's a better vendor. But man, this guy loves snowboarding. We got to get this done.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
As the stakes go up, whether they like you, liking is sort of a minimum requirement, and they're going to find that out over time, especially when you're talking to a professional buyer who knows how to unpack a seller over, a series of calls, meetings, proposals, exchanges, and negotiation. They're going to really see who you are, and whether, you guys both like snowboarding is not going to impact the final closing of this real estate deal, this SaaS software sale, this government contract, whatever it is. They're going to buy because there's value there and there's certainty that the things you say will happen in the future will actually happen as you say they will without high friction. So they're looking for trust and certainty, not correlation to different kinds of sports.
Yeah. Although I would like completely counteract that statement in terms of people do like relationships and things. And sure, if I have two people to like buy something from, and one's like my daughter's husband or something, I'm probably going to buy it from him because it will help something.
If it's a bicycle, okay.
Yeah, if one's shit and one's not.
$50 million rack of servers that you're going to go public with your company and impact 2,000 investors, who have put money in your company. Have you made securities compliant promises to over a series of years? This is not so much a factor.
Yeah, true. But
true.
If I'm going to have to work with this person a lot, I would not want to work with someone who's a dickhead. So I would like to have someone that I would like having around my office, and maybe I could go for a pint with after dinner and after work or something.
This is why we go back to the conversations of values. You can't really understand somebody by whether they like the Boston Celtics, the Patriots, or the Green Bay Packers, or they, follow the news on the storm, or what side of Brexit they fall on. What you can understand is their value. So, for example, if you look at our customer roster, right, we don't have any 75-year-old Chinese women, right, who are our customers in our enterprise services group. Nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with us. But in general, we like to be friends with our customers. We end up going on trips with them. We close large deals. They generally have kids. We have kids. Our kids are friends. My little boy plays hockey, and our value system matches up with theirs, and they like us because we share this. We don't stop when we're tired. We stop when we're done. Sometimes we lose money, right? Even though, on a project we've committed to do, and just the edges fall off and we still have to keep doing it. These are around values. Here's, for example, when I'm talking to a customer, I'll say, listen, this is a perfect example. They'll go, we'll make a pitch and we'll talk to them about it and we'll negotiate a little bit. And they go, yeah, Oren, sounds good. I think it's good. Let's go ahead and do it. Right. They're sort of, rolling over and showing their neck. And I say, no, even though that's a yes, I'll say, that doesn't work for me. Like, we're going to try and do a $30 million deal together. Yeah, let's go do it. It sounds good. That is way too hard. I really need you to say, Oren, I love you. I love the way it works. So excited about this project. Let's go make this happen together. Because I'll tell you why. In a big project like this, whether you're installing servers or doing a government contract or raising money or selling a company or installing accounting software for a large company, whatever it is that you do, the higher the stakes, there will come a point where there's a disagreement. Something went wrong. And this is what I say to our customers. Some Sunday night, you will be expecting a set of financials, a pitch deck, so you can go present on a Monday morning, right? We'll have promised you that. You'll be expecting it. You hit refresh, and it doesn't show up. And that's our fault. And we did it wrong. You're going to call us up Monday morning, go, what the hell, blah, blah, swear. And we're going to say, I'm sorry, we missed that. And sorry is not going to be enough. And we still have to be mad at each other. We still have to be uncomfortable. We still have to have high anxiety. Blame has to still be in place. And yet we still have to be able to go forward and not break up and not ruin the work and make it about the work. And still in that state of irreconcilable issues in that moment, continue forward on the project. And until we see that in each other, we can't go do this thing together. So that's what I think we need to work on, is making sure that when we do get to that point, because it always happens, both of us are big enough to continue and go forward. So I'll have that conversation the bigger the deal it is. And so that's how people get to know us and me, by what I believe in and my experience of how values matter as you get into higher and higher stake deals. With a TV set, you don't need to have that conversation.
Definitely. So, spoken a lot about values. What would you say are your defining values then? Because you sort of alluded to quite a few, but could you just clearly state what are your values and why?
Yeah, sure. So I think the values are the things that, at least in the audience that I work with, when I ask people, what are the things that make you mad? Right. And so with Pitch Anything, I put a lot of content out there, and now I've written a new book, Flip the Script. It's $22 or $14 or free, or, if you can download it as a free, or, so I put out an enormous amount of content on the blog, as do you guys. I have a podcast and the books and everything. And we daily get people go, hey, I read Pitch Anything. I underlined everything. I went and did that stuff, and I raised $3 million. I closed the biggest deal of my life. I'm now a good salesperson. So for me, my value is I cannot accept negativity about Oren Klaff or Pitch Anything, because we've just created too much positivity and changed people's lives. So, I see other people on Instagram like, when somebody's negative, let it blow over you. I don't accept that. I won't work with someone or a company or a person or an individual, and we'll unplug them. People say, your haters make you. Not me. I unplug them from my life. So one of my values is negativity. Won't take it. And, a second one is we won't work harder than you on your company, right? Even though we're the vendor, you hired us to write a pitch or raise money or help sell your company or train your salespeople or create a financial model or change your company in some way or get you a bank line of credit. One of my values is you can't ask us to work harder than you will on your own company. So those are the kind of things that people will hear from me right at the outset. Here's another one, right? People come in and they'll see our capability and my track record and talk to me, and they'll scope out something, huge. Sometimes they'll come in and say, we want you to raise $1 billion. We want you to do this $1 billion deal for us. And I say, one of my values is I don't like to move too fast. And I say, look, let's do this in this way. A, let's see if we like each other, which is what these conversations and meetings about. B, let's see if we can work together. C, let's see if we can build something small that's valuable and good. Let's see if we can build something good. And then let's see if other people think it's good. And if we can check those 3 boxes, then let's scope something out that's larger. So those are where my value system, and I think the buyers that we have those same values, and they come in. And if they don't care about that stuff, then we end up not being able to do business with them.
Cool. Yeah, I really like the last one. Yeah, the second one, like not working harder than the people, is quite interesting, kind of controversial to what you'd normally hear. Then the first point about accepting no negativity, that seems to go right in the opposite of like all you hear about how to improve and growth mindset and like taking on feedback and being able to hear what's wrong with what you're doing to improve it. Do you not feel that maybe you should invite some negativity and like examine your flaws?
So how old are you, by the way? I didn't know. Or give me an age range.
An age range, 25 to 30.
Okay. All right. Listen, fuck you. Okay. Fuck all you 25-year-olds telling me, how the stoic ethic, how I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very comfortable. So in my swim lane, I'm the one that gets 5-6 emails a day. You changed my life. And I have an online platform with 5,000 people in it. And this is maybe the world's largest petri dish of negotiation, business development, sales technology. And so every week we do a call, an hour and a half, and a bunch of people come on and they'll pose their problem. Hey, we have a buyer that's stuck. They won't move forward. They won't move backwards. How do we move it? We have a buyer that's not responding. We have a buyer who's now saying that we promised more than we actually promised them. It's in the contract. For example, we're the best provider we just made a pitch for a company, a hospital group. There's only one person on a 10-person committee that for no reason hates us, right? But nobody will decide against her. So we hear all these problems, every week, every day. And then I'll say, go do this. Here's the solution. So in that case, right, I say, for the woman who's saying, something negative about your company, here's the solution for it. Then they'll go do it and they'll come back. That worked. So I'm very comfortable that I've delivered the value. And in this stuff, I know how to fix these problems. And for people who listen and want to truly fix their problems, I'll help out. And for people who are negative, they can go over to the other places that there are to go. Now, look, am I completely unwilling to do self-introspection? Of course, everybody has to do that at some point. But you have to, at some point, say, this is what we value. This is what we do. We do a good job at it. We continually improve. We get feedback from the market. A large majority of people love it. And we're just not going to pay attention and buy into the outliers because we don't have to.
No, that's interesting. As in going somewhere as a brand, it is much easier if you could have demonstrated exactly what your values are and you just do what it is you're doing, and rather than alluding to what you were saying much earlier about being needy. And if you are just needy for money and you just do whatever someone's asking and taking on their feedback and every complaint, you end up just doing a bunch of things that you don't actually want to be doing anyway, and you lose all track of your values and working on things you don't want to be working on.
Yeah, I think people they find themselves in fetch me another rock. And as good as we are here as an organization, if we don't pay attention to this, we end up doing this, right? Fetch me another rock is the buyer, or the partner. The transaction goes, hey, we really like what you do. It's fantastic. We really want to onboard this. I want to take it up to committee. This is great. Can you make me a spreadsheet that shows the ROI, and really lays out the value proposition? Oh, this is great. We're a little concerned about the technology. You have a white paper that describes the technical aspects of, your implementation and what the math is, behind your, AI machine learning solution is. Oh yeah, here's the white paper. And so eventually it's like, oh, we love the blue rock. Do you have a blue rock with orange dots? We love the blue rock with orange dots. Now we need a pink rock with blue dots on it. Oh, thanks for the pink rock with a blue dot on it. Now we just need a red rock to take it up to committee, to take it up to the CFO, to take it up to the board of directors. Great. We took the red rock up to the board of directors. Now all we need is a green rock, white stripes, and we need to show it to Sasquatch. And Sasquatch has to sign off on it. And then, of course, so fetch me another rock is something that people get into unless they have values. And they can communicate those values about what they're willing to do in a deal and not do. Because when your values appear out of anger or frustration at the end of a project, the buyer's hearing about it for the first time, like, whoa, where's all this coming from? Well, you always had it. You just didn't communicate it in the beginning.
Nice. Yeah, it does make more sense. So, I'm not sure. It's always like a gray line of like nothing's black and white. And I think even though you say you know negativity at all, there is room for some in terms of, well, as in like some feedback and like thinking about realigning things. And it makes a lot of sense the way you've spoken about it. It's not just a complete, I'll never listen to anyone that says something bad.
Yeah, of course.
Like a complete sort of dickhead about it. But no, it's quite nice having like a refreshing view about how to look at things. It's useful.
Yeah, it's individualistic. Like when I wrote the book, when I wrote Pitch Anything, I remember, my agent called and my publisher called in a quite negative tone of voice, right? And they said, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you going to book signings? And like all authors do. And I was like, you mean like go to a Barnes & Noble and sign 5 books for little old ladies, who are there that day at the Barnes & Noble? Yeah, you got to go to, book signings and we'll schedule them like in Poughkeepsie and Wichita Falls and, West Hollywood and San Jose, like those kinds of Barnes & Nobles. And like, yeah, there's like even William Shatner goes to book signings. I go, well, William Shatner should have written a good book. Wouldn't have to go to book signings in West Hollywood for 5 little old ladies. So you can get that feedback from people who know what they're doing, but these markets constantly change. In the world that I live in, things are constantly changing, especially if you're in social media, if you're in web technologies. I mean, what existed yesterday, maybe not yesterday, 6 months ago as advice. Somebody come in and say, hey, you're doing it wrong. That advice is expired in many cases. So you have to be quite self-sufficient today with your values, with the feedback and the direction you get from other people. There aren't these long cycles of business and tech advice, right? Because there used to be this network of retired executives, who had retired, and then the young guys coming up, we get to meet. And so the things that they knew about business from 25, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, right, were incredibly relevant for the 19, 20, 21, 24-year-olds coming up in their own businesses. But those networks have died because 15-year-old know-how is, unless it's really on accounting, which hasn't changed that much, right, is almost, can be completely backwards, anathema to what you need to do today. So, where's that feedback coming from? And what is your willingness to take feedback from people? Hey, maybe I would say like this, if I can make the point. I'll have a lot of guys come to me and they say, hey, we're trying to raise money, $3 million, right? For our, dating app for grandmas that includes poker and pet walking API management, right? Sounds like a pretty good deal today. And they'll say, we met with Kleiner Perkins and we went with True Ventures and we met with these angels, right? And they'll say, what True Ventures told us is we were too niche focused and we needed to be broader, right? And then they'll say, what this angel told us is that we should white label our technology and not invest the time to, build technology today. And then what Kleiner Perkins told us is that we need a technical co-founder, right? And I'll always say, okay, so you got all these feedback from these guys. Did they invest? Do not take advice from people who are really just trying to get you out of their building and go away and not want to meet you again, right? They're actually trying to get you to leave and being comforting and giving you a piece of advice for you to go away with. Never take advice from somebody who doesn't have stakes in your business, especially when it's core advice to the decision-making of what you're going to be, how you're going to do things, and ultimately what your business model is, right? That free advice is either useless or worse than useless. And I'll see people come up with a pitch, which is really something I know well, which is a Franken pitch, right? They've taken advice from 7, 12, 15 different people and then just made a composite of other people's advice about their life, their company, their deal. And it's a total mess. So, I think maybe we beat that subject to death, but you can see I'm very
yes. It's could be true though. Like, think of it. Yeah, definitely. When you take like all the advice from different places, you can just end up running in a million different directions and actually going nowhere, and just a waste of time. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to unpack a bit more about your general, I guess, growth mindset in terms of you sounded like you naturally weren't that good at sales. And
yeah,
you said you just kept
I
on getting
wasn't.
up and like failing. But I'd like to understand more the process of how you improved and like develop your confidence. That's possible.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, if you think about golf, right, or Olympic lift, I don't play golf, but I do Olympic lift. You know, it's part of CrossFit, and
Nice.
these are very complex movements, right? That I don't know anything about golf, but I understand it's the same thing. Like watching videos or reading books or talking about it cannot improve your Olympic lift at all. It's just, you know, unless you see somebody doing it correctly and you can in 3 dimensions copy it and then get feedback. And so I feel like the pitch and sales is very similar, that trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing without really some calibration to somebody who knows what they're doing is very difficult or impossible. And because, you know, as I read the books and I did those things, the books make sense when you read them. I'm sure on a lot of topics, you know, take like NLP or hypnosis or the personality-based sales or the 10-step, you know, straight line sales model. It all sounds good and it makes sense and it's logical, right? But then you go into a meeting and you're facing somebody who can give you a check for $1 million or can change the whole year or the, you know, the arc of your career or your life. And you go, did he look? I touched him on the shoulder. Did he look up and to the left? What did I suppose? Am I in step 3? Is he a ESTJ or a LMNOP? You know, they're too complex.
Definitely.
To know where you are and what to do next, especially if you only got it in a training program or in a book. So then what you do, most people do, is they just default to the basics, right? So the basic programs are to give people features of your product, your service, explain to them the benefits, how the features, you know, will help them be better in life, wrap a whole story around it, go for the trial close. So what do you think? Is this something you'd be interested? Do you have any questions? Stop me if you have any questions. And then of course the objections come out. Oh, you know, we haven't really budgeted for this year. You know, we have a vendor we're currently happy with. It's more than we thought it would be, you know, whatever the objections are. And now it's the first time in a sale that you really feel empowered to do something. Like there's something right in front of you that you know how to do, which is fight and argumentation, high school debate club over these objections. Well, you know, I know you don't have budget right now, but we can finance it and that will, whatever, overcome the objection. And then they'll say, well, you know, that's good. You make a good point. Something we have to think about. Then, of course, the way you control somebody thinking is to discount, provided that, well, you know, if we could get the number right, you think we could get closer to a decision today or this week? Well, you know, if the number was right, we could move a little bit faster. And now you're just giving away margin. So that's sort of what we slip into. But then, as I said before, I started seeing some naturals not do any of that stuff, right? And actually do things that I thought would ruin a sale immediately. And so, for example, I saw my partner walked into a meeting that, you know, was really high level. We're in San Francisco, to Embarcadero, you know, up in one of these big conference rooms. You're looking out over the bay, and they walk in all their people. And generally, the way these things go is you crosstalk and, hey, how was your weekend? You know, did you watch the tennis match and everything like that? And Jonathan just goes, hey, so look, I see you guys just showed up for the 10:03 meeting. Why don't we get that one started? Right? I thought, okay, here's another one going the wrong direction. And he goes, does anybody need fluids in or out? If not, let's get started. We got a lot to get through here. You know, in the next 10, 15 minutes, we're going to tell you about the project. Then we're going to give you some time in relation to our project to tell us what's important to you. And if our circles overlap, we'll figure out a way to go forward, right? And I understand you guys want to learn a lot about the project and you'll be evaluating us, but as much as you'll be evaluating the project and us and our background and everything, we're going to spend our time here evaluating you. So there's a lot to get to. Again, fluids in or out. If not, let's get going. And so when I heard that, I said to myself, coming from sort of an average frustrated background, this meeting is over before it started. But as I looked around, everybody snapped into alignment, put their phones away, put their laptop faces down, and gave 100% attention. And what I realized, although it was counterintuitive, is Russell had communicated, I'm a professional. You're in the hands of a professional. This meeting is going to go the same way you run your internal meetings. Focused, timely, professional, based on common ways of behaving in our commerce system. And you're going to understand with great clarity what's happening, why it's happening, why us, why now, and the value proposition. Why us, why now, and the value proposition. And so he didn't use those words exactly, but as I started unpacking how he was doing things, he was basically coming in and saying, hey, listen, we have information on how everything is changing in this industry. We know how things are going to operate for the next couple of years after the change completely happens. We're one of the few people that know this. We're going to tell you what the value proposition is, what the change that we see is, why we think you're going to get sucked up and consumed by that change, why you should work with us, and why do it now, and how to build trust with us in a very short period of time. That's ultimately what he was sub-communicating. And so as I unpacked it, I said, well, as clumsy as I am, I'll just come in and say these things overtly. Here's how things are changing. Here's why you should work with us. Here's why you should do it now. Here's the value proposition. Here's the ROI. Here's the key assumptions. Here's how this is a pro forma. Here's who's on our team. And here's the decision-making timeline that we're willing to live with. And so as I started doing the things that he was doing as a natural, overtly, it started working better. And so I think that was a very long answer to a short question.
Well, I mean, don't ask super long questions, do you? Yes.
Yeah,
I liked it. It's interesting. I really liked his pitch. It was good.
Yeah.
I think I'd have been there like, whoa, this guy's a god. Cool, I'll do whatever he says. It really demonstrates. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the new book is about, is how to communicate, right? That I'm part of your industry and that I'm an expert, right? Because if somebody trusts you, communication that you have a place in the industry, you know the norms, you know the mores, you know the KPIs, right? That you know people in the industry, that people know you, and you have your place in that industry. That's really all about status, right? And status communicates trust. Low status, low trust, high status, high trust, right? Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, if you can pitch someone about their problem without asking them a million questions about it, go, hey, I got a good idea of what's going on with you guys, right? And you can pitch them as an expert, and they believe you're an expert. Now you've got two things. You've got status and expertise, which to me, in my mind, in my tiny pea brain, is trust and certainty. Status is trust. Expertise provides certainty. That's what the naturals are doing in their own inimitable way. They're creating trust and certainty, and that's a deal.
Cool. Yeah. Was there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked?
Well, I think, the thing that is so important for me today in, the way buyers are today is, how do you show someone you're an expert? And I think that's ultimately, maybe for the next time, because it's a whole topic. Because today when I meet people, they tell people they're an expert. How do you show people you're an expert? Because once you show someone and they believe you're an expert, then they start to have certainty that the things you're promising really will happen. And so I think there's a huge line, although it seems nuanced, between telling people you're an expert, right?
Yeah.
And showing your likes, or showing your, track record, or showing the testimonials, or, that's
Definitely.
telling.
Yeah, it seems like saying, I know a really great story, or I've got a really great joke, but not telling it. Like, I don't think you're funny or a good storyteller just because you told me that. Like, I need to hear the great story or the joke, and I'm like, shit, this guy's funny.
Yeah. It's a great way of putting it. So how do you show someone that you're an expert in their kind of problem? Once somebody feels like you've solved their problem 1,000 times in a row, it's pretty much a boring push-up to do it.
Yeah.
You've accomplished a lot.
That's why CVs are so useless. But yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I like that tip. Thanks. Then I guess, as you spoke about my age a bit, I'm actually 28, by the way, soon to be 29.
Okay. All right. Oh, so I take it back. I take all that swearing back. You're actually a lot more seasoned and mature than I thought.
But yeah, I'm still very young and open to feedback. Any big life tips that you think I should really concentrate on?
I think I would concentrate on this notion of, when you see this runaway success in people, whether it's podcasting or science or something, or book writing that you care about, this is mostly powered by luck. I have worked with billionaires, hundreds of 100 millionaires, 1,000, 10 millionaires. But sometimes there's just like these incredibly smart, talented Elon Musks, although maybe if you follow Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos all the way back, it's just, there's a moment in time that was unbelievable. Most of it is luck, right? So this is going to sound trite, but work hard, carry water, chop wood, get to the end of the day with poise and grace, and move forward. When you do all this work with expectations and that you are deserving of something, it starts to unravel pretty quickly. And so, maybe that's high school gym coach, but maybe that's the best advice, high school gym coach advice is so much, 100 million, 10 million, 1 million, 5 million, 70 million, 1 billion. Most of it is luck.
Thank you so much for listening to the show, and thank yourself. Your consistency and persistency is where it's at. Legend! I truly hope you learned something today, and if you didn't, then I failed. But there's no failure if you learn from it, so help me out by connecting in the Podvine app where any feedback is genuinely appreciated. Thanks. You can also support me on Patreon for early access to full interviews. I am Sam Harris, and you are here to put a dent in the universe. So keep learning, keep growing, and until next time, stay curious. Curious.